Zombicide Modern, Black Plague, Invader. What we're going to take a look at in this vlog is building that Tactica checklist, the Zombicide DNA behind the scenes game mechanics, regardless of the narrative, regardless of the presentation. What are some of the things that we want to keep in mind turn by turn to leverage the best possible success? Now, there are a couple of slight differences that are going to change and tweak the Tactica. Two examples really quick. Black Plague, when you face the abominations, you need certain items to take them out. That morphed and changed a little bit, perhaps to reflect the upgrade in firepower with Zombicide Invader, where you need these heavier weapons to do massive amounts of damage, but you can also focus fire, which gives you a chance to defeat spawned abominations with a little bit less, or I should say, starting gear. So early on, if you card 1 or card 2 draw that abomination, you're in trouble because it's going to be spewing out mold, but it's at least shifting the Tactica and makes it possible. So outside of those little tweaks here and there, all of these games share a similar Tactica, a similar checklist of the most optimal moves. And yesterday, to my archives on the channel under the board gaming playlist, we asked the question, we started to explore this idea, controlling the random. These games that involve dice or involve cards where you're managing resources, there's a certain amount of swinginess. And ideally, when it's my turn, I'm looking to minimize that random. I'm looking to have ways to change it. Certainly, if it's a competitive game, when it's your turn or the opposing side's turn, I'm looking to create as much chaos and random as possible. So in the Zombicide narrative, in that DNA of the game mechanics under the hood, how can we begin to do this? What are some of those optimized moves? So we're looking at the spawn deck. The primary mechanics of all these games involves certain select spawn points on the map, and there could be a few, there could be a lot, of course, depends on the mission, but you flip over a spawn card, and it either spawns an abomination, spawns different types of zombies or xenos, or brings in a necromancer or an invader, or activates extra moves. The AI of the game is determined by these cards, and there's a variety of cards that also ramp up in level depending on how the party, the actors, the heroes gain experience. I was going to say there's good things in the deck and bad things in the deck. There's bad things in the deck and really, really, really bad things in the deck, primarily in the form of abominations and primarily in the form of faster moving zombies or xenos. At the start of the game, all of those spawns are in that deck. And I'm not going to say count cards, but an interesting Tactica is, as the deck gets smaller and smaller, to keep track kind of roughly how many abominations have spawned or special encounters. How many necromancers have spawned? How many runners have spawned? The regular zombies / worker xenos and tanks and fatties, those can be dealt with for the most part, regardless of your level. Understanding that, yes, you could draw an abomination early on, flip 1, flip 2, flip 3, but if you make it halfway through the deck, you know the chances of it spawning are much, much greater at that point. So just trying to keep a mental note and anticipate the possibility or the odds of these spawns coming up and how to possibly deal with them. On the flip side, we have a deck of mechanics in terms of gear, magic items, arms and armor, guns, bombs, again, depending on the narrative. And this idea works on searching, opening up a room, searching, or in the case of Invader, depends if it's an armory or a normal search point, if you're a civilian or if you're a soldier. But you go in a room, you search, you draw a card. You get something, or depending on the version of the game, it might spawn instantly a zombie, or it might cause an activation. The question is when to search, when to optimally search and deal with things, because it takes an action to search, and it could potentially cause a surge, cause other things to activate. So now this leads into the idea of start of the game, mid-game, and end game. So we're going to kind of break the flow up into these three. You want to primarily search. And this is hard because I want the gear, I want the war gear, I want all the toys. I do tend to be a little bit search heavy. I know when the cutoff point is, but I like to push it a little bit. I like to kind of get geared up, ready to go. The beginning of the game is when you want to search because the zombies, Xenos, aliens, invaders, as they spawn, they're on the fringe points of the map. Every turn they're going to move closer and closer and closer, and you're going to see this chain of spawns. And this is the interesting part about the game because what I like to do is set up everything on one side, and if you're new to the franchise, you come over and you're like, wow, look at all these miniatures. That looks pretty cool. We're going to use them all? It's like, not only are we going to use them all, we're going to run out of them. And we don't want to run out of them because then things get really, really crazy with activations. The game pours on more and more. And what you find is this idea of waves. It's not just like here's a group of 6 and you take them out, then you have 3 or 4 spaces before that next wave comes up. The game slowly, it's like a compaction. The game slowly pushes and pushes and pushes. So early on, you want to search. You want all the actors, characters, heroes, players to search because you have 3, 4, or 5 turns to deal with stuff. Or if you're playing a version where something spawns in that search point, you can deal with it and not have this constant push. But the searching causes actions. Generally speaking, and again, we're going to have to modify it on the fly in the moment, when something is twice the range, that's when you want to stop searching. Meaning if I have a weapon or a spell or an item that can hit you 2 spaces out, I want to be aware of searching when you're 4 or 5 spaces out. When things get closer, because when the spawns happen, something could still be far away, but you could draw a spawn card that activates, things shuffle, things move closer and closer and closer. This is controlling the random. We know there could be the potential for random. I want to build that buffer space. So in the beginning, it's about figuring out and searching and gearing up. Now, that's not to say you can't search along the way. That's not to say optimally, if I've got some gear, maybe I'll pass it to you. I mean, all that kind of takes place, happens, and we want to look at. The second piece is as we move into the mid-game, the spawns don't happen all equally. Again, there could be like 2 spawn points on the left, 1 on the right. But if we look at spawns and say they're kind of evenly distributed, some on one side of the table, some on the other side of the gaming table or game board, what you're going to notice, and this is why trying to stick to the center as best as possible as you move towards mission objectives, either gaining those tokens or pushing to an exit point, being in the center-ish gives you places to maneuver. And what you're going to notice as you move into the mid-game, meaning you've got a couple of searches, you've got some gear, you're moving forward. Moving into the mid-game, you're going to see where there's a pocket. What's the easiest pocket to break through? What's the easiest place to push, apply the dice pressure that you can kill enough zombies, Xenos, aliens, invaders, whatever, to move forward? What's that path of least resistance? There's going to be 1 or 2 opportunities. That's where we want to begin moving as a team. Now, of course, that's not always possible because sometimes you have to move to one point of the board, and this is the random of the game, just where the spawns are. It's piling stuff on, so you just got to go just straight through it, blow everything up. Okay, but generally speaking, you're going to find these pockets. Controlling the random. I can't necessarily control the type of spawn cards that we draw, but I can keep pace with the rate that they spawn. And again, this is a little bit challenging because I want to go for the glory. As the characters level up, as the actors and players level up, they go from different threat levels. And as you cross over a threat level, either with the peg or the clip on the bottom of the tray, you level up. You gain some experience, you gain an ability, maybe you gain an extra action, you're becoming more powerful. But as soon as that hits, now for the game, you escalate that spawn level. You escalate the threat level, which puts out greater numbers of zombies to fight. What we don't want to happen, and we're trying to be mindful of, is a huge gap where one or two players really level up, and now they get not only the bonus actions, but they've tripped that extra spawn, and some of the other players are now at a lower level, or so low that even with some extra experience, they can't make up that level. What this means potentially is, by the mid game going into the end game, you will have actors and characters that literally don't get the same amount of action points. They're mismatched action points. This is going to be really hard because literally half the party is going to be slowing down. And at that point, the table's just going to be full of zombies. So in that early part of the game, when the waves are not coming at you, if I can kill two, let's say I'm standing there, I've got 3 actions. If I can shoot once or twice and kill a few, maybe I want to leave 1 or 2 for you to take. Maybe I want to be able to shoot, kill 2 or 3 workers, and then let you finish off the other 2, making sure there's another player to finish off in case you miss, because the dice do miss. It's not always about optimally early on how many can I kill, because we want to try our best to level up. This is where trading items is also important. If you get food, if you get apples, if you get canned goods, if you get MREs, being able to pop that experience off to trade that along the way to other players to help level them up. Very rarely do you want to be eating your own food or MREs, apples, provisions, canned goods, because that will level me up faster. We want to save that and be like, here you go, power up, power it down, get it ready to go. And then, of course, as we move into the end game, this is where you're just making a mad dash for the exit, and it's just kill as much stuff as fast as we possibly can. So that is, under the hood, the tactica and the checkpoints that we're looking, start of the game, mid-game, end game, that applies to all of the Zombicide series, modified a little bit here and there, of course, based on the mission, modified here and there, of course, based on the actors and the type of characters you're playing, and very much the layout and expectation of the maps.